Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. It isn't just another military branch in Iran. It's this incredibly powerful force that's really shaping conflicts across the Middle East, fueling tension with the U.S., with Israel. But how did it get so influential? Today, we're going to unpack that. We'll explore the IRGC, looking at its origins, its massive influence inside Iran politically, economically, and its operations way beyond its borders. Our goal is to give you, the listener, a clearer, more sort of nuanced picture of this organization, drawing directly from the information available.
Right. And our mission here isn't just to list facts, it's to understand why. Why does the IRGC operate the way it does? What does its role actually mean for stability in the region, for international relations? We want to connect those historical dots, look at the different layers of its power so you can really grasp the core reasons for its enduring impact.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. The IRGC didn't just spring out of nowhere. It was born from a really pivotal moment. We're talking about 1980, yeah? Right after the 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Exactly. Ayatollah Khomeini, the founding supreme leader, he realized pretty quickly the new Islamic government needed its own force, something totally committed.
Not just the regular army, the Artesh.
No, they didn't trust the Artesh. The Shah had relied on the military, so the new clerical leadership was wary. They needed a counterweight. The idea was to defend the new Islamic system, consolidate power, lock in those revolutionary ideals.
And specifically to prevent a coup.
Right.
That 1953 event was clearly on their minds.
Absolutely. It was conceived as a people's army in that sense. And crucially, it answered directly to the supreme leader.
Bypassing the president.
Bypassing the elected president, yes. And initially operating beyond the bounds of the law and the judiciary. That's a direct quote from some sources. Quite a unique setup from day one.
So fundamentally, it wasn't just soldiers. It was about ideology.
Yeah.
Guardians of the revolution itself.
Precisely. That's the key difference. Its core purpose was ensuring the revolution survived, preventing any kind of reversal. That ideological mission shapes everything it does, even today.
And that mission got tested early on, didn't it? The Iran-Iraq War.
Oh, massively. That war from 1980 to 88 was brutal. It really forged the IRGC. It went from this sort of nascent guard force to a much more conventional, structured military, developed command systems, hardened its capabilities. It became institutionalized during that conflict.
So it starts as this ideological guardian, gets battle-hardened, and then, well, it seems to morph into something much bigger, almost a state within a state. Let's look at the structure. The numbers are pretty staggering. Sources estimate over 190,000 active personnel.
That's right, upwards of 190,000. And maybe half of those are conscripts. It's a huge force. And it has its own branches. Ground forces, over 150,000, spread across all 31 provinces, its own navy, its own air force, around 15,000 personnel there.
And the strategic weapons. Ballistic missiles, specifically.
Yes, the IRGC oversees those. The IRGC Air Force, interestingly, isn't focused so much on combat planes, but on managing Iran's ballistic missile program.
Which the U.S. calls the largest in the Middle East. 10-plus systems, hundreds of missiles. We've seen them used, too.
Indeed. And then there's the IRGC Navy. About 20,000 sailors. They patrol the Strait of Hormuz. That's critical.
Critical is an understatement. What is it? 20-30% of the world's oil goes through there?
Somewhere in that range, yes. 20 to 33%, depending on the source. So their presence there, intercepting ships, confronting U.S. warships occasionally, it's a major lever of power. They can disrupt things significantly.
And it's considered the dominant military force in Iran, even though the regular Artesh might have more troops on paper?
Generally, yes. Its ideological role and direct line to the supreme leader give it immense influence. And it's not just conventional forces anymore.
Right, the cyber command, espionage propaganda.
Exactly. A modern dimension to its power. But don't forget the domestic side. The besieged.
The besieged resistance force, the mobilization of the oppressed. Tell us about them.
It's a huge paramilitary volunteer militia. Around 100,000 men and women deeply loyal to the revolution, controlled by the IRGC. And they claim they can mobilize many more, maybe up to 600,000 volunteers if needed.
And their main role seems to be internal control, suppressing dissent.
That's certainly a major function. We saw them heavily involved in cracking down on the 2009 post-election protests. Dozens killed, thousands arrested. And more recently, during the 2022 Women Life Freedom protests, there were widespread accusations against the Besieged and IRGC forces, beatings, shootings, torture, sexual assault, very serious allegations.
So it's military, it's internal security.
Yeah.
But it's deeply political, too.
Oh, absolutely. You can't separate the IRGC from Iranian politics. It's woven right in. They have incredibly close ties to Supreme Leader Khamenei. Remember, he led the IRGC himself during the Iran-Iraq War. Senior officers advise him constantly.
And former IRGC figures are everywhere in government. Ahmadinejad, Larijani.
Key positions, yes. Parliament, government ministries, other influential bodies. And serving officers aren't shy about voicing opinions.
Like challenging President Rouhani on the nuclear deal.
Exactly. Major General Jafari, the commander at the time, openly pushed back against Rouhani's moderate approach. It shows their willingness to challenge even the elected government if they feel the revolution's principles are at stake.
There were even allegations about them influencing elections, like in 2009 and creating pressure in 2013.
Yes, those allegations exist, pointing to a direct hand in political outcomes. Their influence certainly seemed to grow in the 2020 and 2021 elections with Raisi's win.
And looking ahead, many experts think the IRGC will be central in choosing Khamenei's successor.
It seems very likely, which could consolidate their power even further.
But this power comes at a cost, domestically. You mentioned the protests and that tragic plane shoot-down in 2020.
Definitely. That event, killing 176 people, mostly Iranians, was a huge blow to their public image. While they hold immense power, they are not universally popular within Iran, especially after incidents like that and the harsh crackdowns.
Okay, so military power, political power. And then there's the money. The IRGC's economic empire. A government with a gun, as former President Rouhani put it, controlling maybe a third of the economy.
That's the estimate, yeah. Around a third through this vast network of companies, subsidiaries, trusts. It's enormous.
How did that happen? How did a Revolutionary Guard become a business tycoon?
It really started after the Iran-Iraq War. They were tasked with rebuilding the country's infrastructure. That was their entry point.
And they just kept going.
Pretty much. They expanded into everything. Housing, dams, roads, oil and gas projects, food, transport, banking, shipping, manufacturing, imports. Even culture and education. Their engineering wing, Qatam Al-Anbiya, is massive. Tens of thousands of employees, billions in contracts.
Often no bid contracts, thanks to their political pull.
That's the advantage they have. Their connections secure lucrative deals.
Which raises questions, obviously. Rouhani criticized it. And the sanctions. How have they played into this?
It's a bit counterintuitive, but some analysts argue U.S. sanctions might have actually helped the IRGC economically.
How so?
By cutting off legitimate international finance and trade for many Iranian businesses, it potentially opened up more space for the IRGC's less transparent black market activities, smuggling oil, for example, particularly to China. That generates significant revenue, especially for the Quds Force and groups like Hezbollah.
But it's not all illicit. You mentioned public works, goodwill projects.
Right. They do undertake projects, especially in rural areas, which can build support, like the flood relief efforts in 2019. And they're involved in reconstruction in Syria, too, extending that economic reach.
It's this self-funding mechanism, isn't it? The economic power fuels the military and political power, and vice versa.
Exactly. It's a cycle that allows them incredible autonomy and resources, often operating parallel to or even above the official state budget.
Okay, let's pivot to that external arm, the Quds Force. This is probably the part of the IRGC most people outside Iran have heard about.
For sure. The Quads, or Jerusalem Force, it's the IRGC's overseas operations wing. Shadowy, effective, sometimes called its de facto external affairs branch.
And its main job is projecting Iranian power abroad, building this axis of resistance.
That's the core mission. Implementing foreign policy, countering Western and Israeli influence, supporting allies. They do this through providing money, weapons, technology, training, advice, all sorts of support to governments and armed groups across the region.
So places like Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen.
Afghanistan, the Palestinian territories too. They have cultivated ties across a wide arc.
Let's talk specifics. Lebanon and Hezbollah.
A cornerstone relationship. Massive support funding, training, weapons. Hezbollah shares Iran's hostility to the U.S. and Israel. Attacks like the 1983 Beirut bombings have been linked to Iran-Hezbollah.
And in the Palestinian territories.
Yeah.
Hamas, Islamic Jihad.
Yes, support for those groups too. After the October 7th attack, Khamenei denied direct involvement, but the long-standing support and likely awareness are hard to ignore for many observers. Tehran likely facilitated it, even if they didn't direct it minute by minute.
What about Iraq? That became a major focus after 2003.
Yeah. Huge involvement there. The U.S. accused the Quds Force back in 2007 of supplying Shiite militants with IEDs used against American troops. Later, they were instrumental in backing the Shia paramilitary forces, the PMF, that helped defeat ISIS. Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, a key leader in that effort, was actually a Quds Force officer himself holding dual Iraqi-Iranian citizenship,
Syria's civil war.
deeply involved, advising Assad's forces, arming thousands of Shia militiamen, even having IRGC personnel on the front lines.
Yemen, supporting the Houthis.
Yes, channeling intelligence, training, and weapons to the Houthi rebels in their fight against the Saudi-backed coalition.
So this network allows Iran to exert influence without always putting its own forces directly on the line.
That's the strategy. Using proxies, building this complex web of alliances, it complicates things immensely for their adversaries and allows them to project power across the region.
But it also leads to accusations of, well, terrorism?
Yes, the U.S. explicitly accuses the Quds Force of supporting terrorist groups and carrying out attacks directly or indirectly across the globe. There was that alleged plot in 2011 to kill the Saudi ambassador in Washington, D.C., a Quds Force operative convicted in Germany for spying, culminating in that 2019 U.S. designation of the entire IRGC as a foreign terrorist organization.
Which was unprecedented for a state military force.
Absolutely. A major step signaling the U.S. view of the IRGC's activities.
And all this influence, this projection of power, inevitably leads to clashes.
Yeah.
Flashpoints. Especially with the U.S. and Israel. You mentioned the U.S. blaming the IRGC for hundreds of U.S. troop deaths in Iraq earlier. The tensions really ramped up after that FTO designation in 2019.
They did. Iran started what it called a counter-pressure campaign. We saw the IRGC shoot down a U.S. drone over the Strait of Hormuz.
They seized a British tanker.
Right. And the U.S. blamed Iran for attacks on other tankers, Saudi oil facilities, and that rocket attack that killed an American contractor in Iraq in late 2019. Iran denied it all, but the tensions were sky high.
Leading up to that huge escalation, the killing of Qasem Soleimani in January 2020.
A pivotal moment. The U.S. drone strike in Baghdad killed the Quds Force commander. The Pentagon said he was planning attacks. Khamenei vowed forceful revenge.
And we saw Iran-backed groups increase attacks on U.S. forces after that.
Yes, particularly in Iraq and Syria. There was one attack in 2021 that wounded dozens of personnel. And even more recently, those alleged IRGC plots targeting critics and even Donald Trump on U.S. soil.
The confrontations with Israel have also become incredibly direct and dangerous.
Extremely so. Since the October 2023 Hamas attack, the IRGC has been arming and assisting partners in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen to hit Israeli targets.
Then came April 2024, Iran's first ever direct attack on Israeli territory. Hundreds of drones and missiles.
In retaliation, Tehran said, for an alleged Israeli strike on its embassy compound in Syria that killed several IRGC commanders.
And it didn't stop there. October 2024, another wave of strikes, mostly ballistic missiles this time.
Retaliation again, they claimed. For the suspected Israeli killing of a Hamas official in Tehran and the confirmed killing of Hezbollah's leader in Beirut.
Israel and his allies intercepted most of those, but Israel did retaliate, hitting Iranian air defenses and missile facilities.
Yes, a tit-for-tat escalation.
Until June 2025. Those major Israeli strikes killing the head of the IRGC, General Salami, the aerospace chief, Haji Zaida, other commanders, nuclear scientists.
A massive escalation. Netanyahu openly talking about hitting Iran's nuclear program hard. Iran's foreign minister calling it a declaration of war.
It paints a picture of an organization constantly pushing boundaries, raising the stakes. This pattern of action, reaction, it underscores the IRGC's central role in regional conflict.
Absolutely. It shows their willingness to take calculated risks, use their network, and directly confront major powers, shaping the dynamics of an already incredibly volatile region.
So looking back, the IRGC started as this guardian of a revolution now. It's military, political, economic powerhouse. It defends ideology, borders, projects power globally, drives the economy, influences succession.
All wrapped up in one entity, uniquely loyal to the supreme leader. Its future path is going to remain absolutely critical to understanding the Middle East.
Which leads to a final thought for you, our listeners. What else could this organization become? Given its evolution so far, how might its future transformations impact global stability? Something to consider. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and thanks to everyone for your time today. If you found this valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network for more insights like this. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments section. You can join us on social media too. All the links are right there in the description. Thanks again for listening.